He was not coming from outside. He was already in the building. The suspect in the White House correspondent's dinner shooting was reportedly a registered guest at the Washington Hilton, which means he may have moved through the hotel interior, past the lobby, down the corridors, and toward the ballroom before anyone stopped him. Not as an intruder, as a guest, and according to witnesses cited by Axios, when he reached the security checkpoint near the ballroom, the metal detectors may have been in the process of being taken down. The president was still inside. Scene 02. That is why this story is no longer just about a shooting. It is about the architecture of presidential security. The president, the vice president, senior cabinet officials, the FBI director, members of Congress, journalists, and media executives were all inside one ballroom. And an armed man got close enough for a Secret Service officer to be shot in the vest. The officer survived. President Trump was not injured. Other protected officials were evacuated. The suspect was taken into custody. Those facts matter because they show the final protective layer worked. But they also raise the harder question: why did the final layer have to work that hard in the first place? Authorities have identified the suspect as Cole Tomas Allen, 31, of Torrance, California. According to law enforcement officials cited by AP and Reuters, Allen had traveled from California to Washington, and authorities believe he checked into the Washington Hilton before the attack. That hotel guest detail is now the center of the security story. Because if Allen was already a registered guest, then the old mental picture is wrong. This was not simply a stranger trying to storm a building from the street. According to the emerging account, he had access to the hotel interior before encountering the dinner-specific security checkpoint. That means the first real barrier may have been much deeper inside the building. And that matters because the White House correspondent's dinner is not a normal banquet. It is one of the most publicly known political events in Washington. The date is known. The venue is known. The guest list is high value. The president's attendance made it even more sensitive. Security planners know all of this. They are supposed to plan for it. The shooting happened near the Magnetometer screening area outside the ballroom. According to D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief Jeffrey Carroll, the suspect was armed with a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives. Authorities say at least one Secret Service agent was struck by gunfire, but the agent's vest stopped the round. That vest may be the reason this story did not become far worse. But the vest is not the whole story. Protective equipment is the last line, not the first. If a round is hitting an officer's vest near the protected zone, investigators have to ask what happened before that shot. How did the suspect move through the hotel? When did he check in? What did he bring with him? What did security know before he moved? Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche has now said preliminary findings suggest Allen appeared to be targeting members of the Trump administration, likely including the president. That is a major development. But the word preliminary has to stay attached to it. Investigators are still reviewing writings, electronic devices, witness interviews, and the suspect's movements. So the responsible line is this. Authorities believe the suspect may have been targeting administration officials, but the full motive is not yet legally established. That is not hedging. That is accuracy. In a political violence case, premature certainty is how misinformation becomes part of the event itself. There is already plenty confirmed without guessing. Allen was arrested. He was armed with multiple weapons. A Secret Service officer was shot and survived. Trump and other protectees were evacuated. The dinner was canceled. Authorities say Allen was likely a hotel guest, and prosecutors have filed federal charges, with more expected. The next step is Monday's arraignment. That hearing matters because it will move the case from press statements into court procedure. Prosecutors may present charges, argue detention, and potentially reveal more details through filings. The detention memo, if released, could become the most important public document in the case. That is because detention memos often contain the government's clearest early version of the facts: weapons, timeline, statements, planning, travel, digital evidence, writings, and why prosecutors believe the defendant should remain jailed. In breaking news terms, that document may tell us more than 10 press conferences. For now, the most important confirmed security angle is the hotel access issue. AP reports that the Washington Hilton was closed to the public before the dinner, but access remained available to hotel guests, ticketed attendees, reception invitees, and credentialed people. If Allen was a hotel guest, that may explain how he got past the outermost access layer. That does not automatically prove negligence. Hotels are complicated security environments. Guests have rooms, staff move constantly, receptions happen, VIPs arrive, journalists come and go, police, Secret Service, TSA, hotel security, and event staff all operate within overlapping zones. But complexity is exactly why perimeter design matters. And this is the key tension. Law enforcement officials are saying the multi-layered protection worked. In one sense, they are right. The suspect did not reach the ballroom. The president was evacuated. The officer survived. The suspect was captured. But if the suspect reached the screening area with a shotgun, handgun, and knives, the public will want more than the plan worked. This is why Signal Drop is covering the second phase of the story. Subscribe if you want the architecture, not just the headline, and share this with someone who only saw the shooting, because the shooting is one story. How he got that close is another, and it may be the more important one. The Washington Hilton is not just another hotel. It is the same venue where President Ronald Reagan was shot in 1981. Since then, the building has been heavily studied and modified for presidential events. AP reports the hotel includes security features designed for presidential visits, including a secured garage and protected movement routes. That history makes this incident more unsettling, not less. This is a venue the Secret Service knows well. This is an event the agency has dealt with for decades. This is not an unfamiliar location in a remote city. It is a Washington security landmark. That means the review will not be about whether anyone understood the site. It will be about whether the threat model was enough. The suspect's profile also complicates easy narratives. The LA Times reports that Allen graduated from Caltech in 2017 with a degree in mechanical engineering, was a member of the school's Christian Fellowship, worked as a teacher and tutor, and had been recognized as Teacher of the Month in December 2024. That does not explain motive. It only warns us not to rely on stereotypes. That is an important point. People often want the suspect profile to immediately tell a story. Radical, unstable, ideological, organized, foreign-linked, partisan. But early profiles can mislead. Education does not rule out violence. A job title does not reveal motive. A small political donation does not prove intent. Background is evidence only when investigators connect it to action. The briefing notes a $25 Act Blue donation tied to the Harris campaign in 2024. That detail may be real, but by itself it is not motive. One small donation cannot carry the weight of an assassination theory. It can be part of a broader investigative file, but it cannot be turned into the explanation before the writings, devices, and witness statements are known. This is where responsible coverage has to be strict. Do not say he was part of a network unless investigators say that. Do not say he was acting for a political movement unless evidence supports it. Do not say the donation proves motive. Do not say the writings prove motive until the contents are disclosed. Right now, the writings exist. Their meaning is still unknown publicly. Blanche's statement is serious because he said investigators believe Allen set out to target people working in the administration, likely including Trump. CBS separately reported that after his capture, Allen reportedly expressed to authorities his intention to harm members of the Trump administration. But Blanche also made clear the findings are preliminary. Targeted political violence is now a leading investigative theory, not a fully proven public record. Trump has called the suspect a would-be assassin. Fortune reports he has been charged with attempting to assassinate the president. That may become the dominant legal framing. Prosecutors will decide what charges they can fully support. The public should not confuse the president's description with a final legal conclusion. In a case like this, words matter because they set the emotional temperature of the country. And the temperature is already high. Trump survived an assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania during the 2024 campaign. A bullet grazed his ear on live television. There was a later alleged attempt tied to his Florida golf course. Now, as a sitting president in his second term, an armed man was stopped near a ballroom where he and his entire cabinet were seated. 3 incidents, 3 different locations, 3 different suspects. Whether legally connected or not, politically this will feel like a pattern to many Americans, and that feeling will shape the next chapter of this story, whether investigators want it to or not. But feeling like a pattern is not the same as proving a pattern. That distinction is vital. Investigators need to establish whether Allen acted alone, whether he had communications with anyone, whether his writings show planning, and whether he chose the dinner because of Trump, the administration, the press, or the concentration of officials. Those answers are not all public yet. The lone actor question is especially important. Acting AG Blanche confirmed to NBC that Allen appeared to have acted independently, but the investigation is continuing. No known accomplices is not the same as case closed. Devices, travel records, hotel records, firearm purchases, and communications will all be checked. The train route also matters. Authorities believe Allen traveled from Los Angeles to Chicago and then to Washington by train. That does not prove motive, but it does suggest planning across time and distance. A cross-country trip to the event city is not the same as a spontaneous local confrontation. Prosecutors will almost certainly use that travel timeline to argue preparation. The hotel room search may matter even more. Law enforcement executed a search warrant on Allen's room at the Washington Hilton. The contents have not been publicly disclosed. That room could reveal whether he brought weapons in luggage, assembled items on site, left writings, stored devices, or planned movement inside the hotel. Or it may reveal less than people expect. We do not know yet. This is why the Monday court filings are the key. If prosecutors disclose hotel room evidence, writings, weapon details, or statements from Allen, the story may sharpen quickly. If filings remain narrow, uncertainty will continue. Either way, the facts will move from rumor space into legal space, and that is where this story needs to go. The security review has to answer one uncomfortable question first. Should the outer perimeter have been designed differently once the president was confirmed to attend? If a hotel guest could move close to the ballroom security checkpoint with weapons, then investigators must decide whether hotel guest access created a predictable vulnerability. There are possible explanations. The weapons may have been hidden, the suspect may have moved quickly, the checkpoint may have been transitioning after entry closed, security may have been arranged around the assumption that the protected ballroom zone was the decisive boundary. But each explanation leads to the same review question. Was that assumption good enough? AP reports that once the president was seated, additional attendees were no longer allowed to enter the secured area, and security footage showed officers appearing to disassemble metal detectors. That timing detail matters. If the checkpoint was being adjusted or taken down, investigators will ask whether that created a brief vulnerability. A few minutes can matter in a security plan. If that timing is confirmed, if the checkpoint was being disassembled while the president was still in the building, it will be the single most difficult finding for the Secret Service to explain, because a security layer being taken down is not a layer at all. The Secret Service will argue that the system prevented the worst outcome. Critics will argue that the system allowed the suspect too close. Both can be partly true. Security reviews are rarely clean morality plays. They are technical autopsies of seconds, assumptions, staffing, placement, and luck. Here, luck may have been the vest. The concentration of leadership inside the ballroom is another issue. The guest list reportedly included Trump, Melania Trump, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, Kash Patel, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Lee Zeldin, Todd Blanche, members of Congress, journalists, and media executives. That is an extraordinary concentration of political, national security, and media power in one room. Events like this are always symbolic, but symbolism can become vulnerability. The White House Correspondents' Dinner advertises proximity, press near power, politicians near celebrities, rivals in the same room, jokes where fights usually are. That is part of its appeal. But proximity also concentrates risk. The same thing that makes the event famous makes it difficult to secure. This is where the story becomes bigger than Trump. Any president would create the same security problem. Any administration would face the same questions. How do you protect democratic visibility without locking leaders away from public life? How do you secure events without making them impossible to hold? How do you screen a hotel without turning it into an airport? Those are not rhetorical questions. They are the brief the Secret Service is writing right now. The answer is layered protection, but layered protection only works if the layers are placed where the threat realistically begins. If the first effective weapon screening is near the ballroom, then the hotel interior becomes a gray zone. That may be manageable for many events. For a room full of top U.S. officials, it becomes a much harder call. That is the operational lesson investigators will now test. Was the hotel guest path accounted for? Were rooms checked? Were bags screened? Were elevators controlled? Were corridors locked down? Was the magnetometer area protected by enough distance? Did staff know what to watch for? These are not abstract questions. They are the difference between a stopped attack and a catastrophic one. The political aftermath will be ugly. Some will blame rhetoric. Some will blame security. Some will blame mental health. Some will blame gun laws. Some will try to attach the suspect to a political movement before the evidence supports it. That is predictable. It is also why the official record matters so much in the next 48 hours. Trump is already framing the response around resilience. He said the dinner should be rescheduled and that nobody should be allowed to take over society. That message is politically powerful because it combines defiance with normalcy. But rescheduling also raises a practical question. What security changes would make a second dinner safer than the first? If the event is rescheduled, expect visible changes. Tighter hotel access, earlier lockdown, more aggressive screening, more distance between public areas and the ballroom, possibly different magnetometer placement, more canine sweeps, more room checks, more restrictions on movement. Security always tightens after an incident. The question is whether the changes address the actual gap. The FBI's role now is to build the motive case. The Secret Service's role is to review the protection case. The Justice Department's role is to build the legal case. Those are related, but not identical. Motive explains why he came. Security review explains how he got close. Charges explain what prosecutors can prove. Do not collapse those into one story. The most important thing viewers should remember is simple. The suspect's profile is not the motive, the donation is not the motive, the travel is not the motive, and the writings are not the motive until their contents are known. Motive is built from evidence, not assumption. Old-school journalism still applies. Document, witness, timeline, physical evidence. Everything else is noise. What we can say is serious enough. Authorities believe Allen may have targeted Trump administration officials. He allegedly arrived after cross-country travel. He was believed to be a hotel guest. He carried multiple weapons. He reached the checkpoint area. He fired. A Secret Service officer's vest stopped the round, and the entire top of the executive branch was inside the venue. That combination makes this one of the most important domestic security incidents of the year, not because the worst happened, but because the worst was close enough to force a full institutional review. The system prevented a disaster. Now the system has to explain why the disaster got that close. Watch 3 things next. First, the arraignment and detention memo. Second, the contents of the writings and whether they establish a specific target. Third, the Secret Service review of hotel access and checkpoint placement. Those 3 pieces will decide whether this story becomes primarily an attempted assassination case, a security failure case, or both. Also, watch how quickly officials update the public. Silence creates space for conspiracy. Overstatement creates space for correction. The right path is narrow. Release confirmed facts, mark uncertainty clearly, and avoid political spin before evidence is ready. In a country this polarized, communication is not cosmetic, it is part of crisis management. The old lesson is still the hard one. Security is judged by the thing that almost happened. Cole Tomas Allen is in custody. The president is safe. The officer survived. The ballroom was cleared. But the question now is not whether the final line held. It is why an armed hotel guest allegedly got close enough to test it. Monday's arraignment will be the first time the legal record starts to answer that question. We will be watching.